Hi there, my name is Gillian Anderson, and on today's episode of Real Reactions, we're going to be covering Dr. Sleep, based off of Stephen King's novel and sequel to The Shining. Will it live up to both Stephen King and Stanley Kubrick's legacy, or will it put us to sleep? Let's find out.
Not many ride the bus this far north. You're running away from something? I'm running away from myself, I guess.
Hi. You can hear me.
So we're here with Alessandra, and she saw the movie. What did you think?
Oh, it wasn't great. It was, I really don't know how to describe it. I would say 6 out of 10.
How did you think it compared with the original Shining?
I think the original Shining is actually a pretty good movie, but it's not like one of my favorites. And so this movie, I wasn't going into it like, is it gonna live up to The Shining? I just was like, let's see what it is. And to me, it was like fine. I enjoyed it just like Shining. And I thought it was like a nice conclusion to the story.
I thought it was pretty all right. I wasn't super I didn't have huge expectations. It seemed kind of weird from some of the stuff I was seeing in the trailers, and going into it, I was sort of, my expectations, as low as they were kind of just met. I was like, oh, this is all right. Kind of just a big mess, but not terrible.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was actually pretty good. It wasn't nearly as scary as like they've been trying to push in the marketing, but I liked the character work, and I thought Ewan McGregor did a really nice job with it, so kind of got invested in that.
What did you think about the parts where they recreated the scenes with the characters like Jack and Wendy and a young Danny? How do you think that held up?
I mean, I think it was pretty cool, like as opposed to like doing like something with CGI, like I think that kind of would have looked weird. So like recasting it, I mean, the actors did a pretty good job where I wasn't like, that's not Wendy. I mean, I was kind of like, okay, so that's Wendy.
I think they looked like freakishly similar to the original cast, which like was cool, but just the jumping around the plot and everything was kind of like a mess, and it was hard to understand what was going on at some points and what they were doing, and like some of like the bigger parts of the film were just kind of like rushed through, and a bunch of people died in like one scene. It was a mess.
That was pretty cool. Like at the beginning, they definitely went hard with it, and at the end, I noticed like there was some more, like they did a lot of the shot styles similar to that Kubrick. They literally played the exact same music as Kubrick, so it felt like they were trying to walk a line, but I think they did pull it off. Even though towards the end it did become a lot of just like, remember The Shining? You remember this character, right? But it worked.
Yeah, I thought all of that was funny, just because it was in that kind of uncanny valley place of like, they looked kind of like Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall and the kid from The Shining, whose name I don't remember, but they didn't look enough like it that I was fully convinced, and it all kind of just looked like a recreation, which is what it was.
Did you see The Shining? How did you think it lived up?
I did see The Shining when I was younger, and probably shouldn't have watched it then. So I don't really remember too much about it, but I can say I know that a lot of people love it, and I'm not sure that a lot of people are gonna love this one.
I think it did a pretty good job of like standing on its own when it had to. Like all the Dr. Sleep stuff is so far removed from anything that was going on in The Shining, really, that it kind of stood on its own. And then like in the third act, when it goes back to The Shining, it does a good job of paying homage to The Shining without being like a blatant like throwing nostalgia in your face, I thought.
I saw The Shining recently when they re-released it in theaters for a couple nights and did really enjoy it. I think it has a different intention. Like The Shining is this psychological horror, while this is more of a character arc, and there is horror. Like a lot of the stuff with the true nod is kind of creepy, including there is some pretty nasty scenes, including Jacob Tremblay's.
I have seen The Shining, and that's sort of one of those movies that like, I don't know, it's in like the film canon, whatever that is. I don't think this movie is nearly as good. It kind of rips a lot of elements from The Shining of like, look at this shot. You remember this from The Shining.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how scary do you think it was?
5.
Probably like a 1 or a 2. I didn't think it was all that scary. There's like a couple jump scares where it's like they crank up the music and the wah and that stuff sort of gets you.
I wouldn't say scary. I don't get scared super easily, but I would say like maybe 5 or 6. In terms of disgusting, I'd give it a 7 or an 8.
2. I mean, it wasn't really scary as much as it was off-putting. Like, there's certain scenes that are more like, that was uncomfortable, and instead of like jump scares.
How do you think this ranks among other Stephen King movies?
I would do a similar ranking to previous interview of like It Chapter 2, Dr. Sleep, Pet Sematary.
Honestly, it fell flat. I would say the other Stephen King movies that I have seen are so much better. I saw the remake to Pet Sematary when it came out, and it was great. I loved it. I thought it was a little like freaky, but it was a good like remake. This one, I don't even know what to say about it, but It 2 was also pretty bad in my opinion. I liked the first remake they did of it, but It 2 was just kind of like, again, all over the place. So I don't really know where he's going, but we'll see what he comes out with next.
I mean, I've seen a few. I think definitely this is like one of the good ones. Like, I don't think this is with the bad ones. Like It Chapter 2, I think this is better than It Chapter 2.
But it's better than some, but not as good as the others. I would actually probably do the It 1, It 2, Sleep, Pet Sematary.
So are there any particular scenes that stood out to you?
There's a scene with Jacob Tremblay that I thought was really good, and I thought Jacob Tremblay is like the only person who could really pull that off to the height of what it was. And then there's a scene towards the end with 2 characters. I don't want to give away anything, but I was kind of iffy on because they were really going heavy into The Shining, and I was like, is this gonna work? But once there was a conversation between 2 characters, and I was like, I'm glad that was in there. 'Cause to me, it was a nice kind of conclusion to The Shining that I didn't know I wanted.
I think the scene where, I don't want to ruin it, but a bunch of people die, and I think the scene where they die was cool, but kind of a mess, and so that stood out to me because I remembered that.
Well, hi there.
Get out of my head! Get out!
I haven't felt power like that in so long.
It seems like we got mixed reactions about Dr. Sleep. Personally, I liked it, but you'll just have to see for yourself. My name is Gillian Anderson, and that's it for today's episode of Real Reactions. Although our reactions may be a little bit ridiculous and a little bit racy, they're always real.